Just ahead on American Black Journal, the outrage over racist remarks by owner of the LA Clippers, Donald Sterling. We'll talk with two sports journalists about the NBA's punishment and the impact on sports teams. Plus, the founder of the Sphinx Organization is here to talk about efforts to increase the number of minorities in the performing arts. We have two very important discussions ahead. Stay with us.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Desiree Cooper sitting in for Stephen Henderson. It's the talk of the nation. The NBA has placed a lifetime ban on the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, Donald Sterling, for making racist comments in recorded conversations. In the rant, he chastised his biracial girlfriend for posting online photos of herself with black athletes, and he told her not to bring black people to the Clippers games. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver also fined Sterling $2.5 million and is calling on NBA owners to force him to sell the team. It's one of the harshest penalties that's ever been handed down in U.S. sports history. Here to talk about the scandal and its repercussions are Detroit Free Press sports columnist Drew Sharp and longtime sports journalist Eric Pate. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Glad to be here.
Drew, I want to start with you. I have your column right here this week. You said they nailed a racist. Congratulations. Big whoop. Really?
Yeah,
big whoop?
Big whoop, because it's easy to just dump everything on Donald Sterling right now. He's become everyone's favorite piñata. Just take a whack at him. He's become the perfect guy that everyone can just divert attention away from what I think is the real problem.
Which is what?
What is the culture in this exclusive 30-man fraternity that we know as NBA ownership that will allow this type of conduct to continue to foster for over the last 10 or 15 years? Because if not for this recorded conversation from his mistress, would the NBA be outraged right now because of this, even though there's a history with Donald
Sterling? Well, he'd be getting an award from the NAACP now, right?
And Eric, you know, he's had a history of racial discrimination away from the floor, on the floor, and the fact that these owners had allowed this to happen for so long. That's what I want to focus on.
Well, not only the owners, you talk about the culture. People knew about his housing discrimination lawsuits and, you know, all these other things going on. Eric, what's the responsibility of even fans or the players? I mean, people are really turning to the players and saying, who are they to work for a man that's just so blatantly racist?
Right, and I think that you have to look at the players and ask, were you really serious about where you're going to stay out of a playoff game? And that's where I start. And I made a couple phone calls, and I did talk to someone that's in the Lakers, or not the Lakers, the Clippers organization. Let me make that clear. In the Clippers organization, they said they were very honest, they were truthful in saying that they were going to boycott a playoff game. You have Willie Green, who plays for the Clippers. You have Howard Isley, who's an executive or works with the executive team with the Clippers. That are closely, you know, they're involved with the LA Clippers. You have Jordan Crawford, who plays for the Golden State Warriors. So you have a Detroit connection, so to speak, in that series, in that league. But the big picture is with these guys, you know, we have a generation and a culture that says cash is more important than protest. And no one wants to put any skin in the game and sacrifice.
Well, wait a minute. We had Charles Barkley famously said, I'm not a role model, right? Yeah. I mean, that's their jobs. They're not there to lead movements, are they?
But I think, how do movements start, Desiree? Somebody's got to sacrifice. And I think in this case, the players, Drew and Desiree, they have to say, hey, listen, it's bigger than basketball. And it's easy for Jalen Rose, a former NBA player, Steven Jackson, a former NBA player, to say, hey, I would have stayed out of this game. At Chauncey Billups, we love him to death, Mr. Big Shot, all this stuff.
You can say all that on the sidelines. What about if you've got to decide that day if you're going to suit up? What do you do?
I understand it was tough for him. I'm sure these players are being pulled in different directions.
Right.
Because you also had these activists telling them that, you know what, this is like the 60s now, guys. We have to take to the streets. And these guys are going, 1960, were they even born then? They have no concept of what the real civil rights movement was back then. And the thing is, if they had walked out, it would have been a disaster PR-wise, because then you'd have millionaires complaining about a billionaire owner, and the ones who've been punished the most have been the fans who usually have to spend a lot of cash to go and pay to see these games, then they're the ones who can be, quote unquote, victimized by this. I thought the players did the right thing, though, in that I thought they had a pointed protest by flipping the jerseys and not showing the Clippers name.
Some people said that was lame.
Let me just say this. I thought it was lame. Because, like I said previously, you have to sacrifice in order for struggle. I'm a byproduct of the civil rights generation. I mean, I'm second generation. I'm a 70s kid. I understand that hey, hell no, we won't go. Those kind of things have to mean something. We just haven't taught this generation, including NBA guys,
But Eric, we want to
protest.
Let's look at how many people go to work every day for racist bosses, for racist owners of companies. Do they walk out and leave their paycheck behind? You know, I mean, it is a lot to ask for someone to sort of walk off their job, and they become the victim too, a millionaire victim. But we get back to what Drew was talking about, the owners. What's going to happen there? Because really, they have fostered a culture that allowed this man to stay there for all these years. Mark Cuban has already said this is a slippery slope. You know, we don't want to start punishing people for what do you think is going to happen there? And is Oprah really going to own a team?
Well, I do think now that the NBA, as I wrote in the column, I think their objective should be to go out there and actively recruit the next ownership group to buy either the Clippers or the next team that's available. Make sure that there is significant minority business investment in there. And I think the thing that's really come out of this that it should be encouraging over the last few days after this story broke is that Donald Sterling may not realize, but he has mobilized the black business community. And now they're starting to realize, you know what, this wasn't as much about race as it was about power. And Donald Sterling is saying, you know what, I'll be happy to pay these guys to entertain me. I'll pay them handsomely to pay me. But you know what, I don't want you at my level as an owner, as a guy who's able to own an NBA team. And people have said that, well, you know, there's not enough money in the black community. Really? You know, pick up the phone and call Oprah. You don't think she can buy the team?
Right.
You know?
My aunt always said God knew what she was doing when she gave Oprah all the money in the world, right? So.
Right. I got to say this, though, Desiree and Drew. There's another group. Okay, Magic's name's been associated with the group, but there's another group that expressed some interest through the media. Floyd Money Mayweather Jr. and Sean P. Diddy Combs, or whatever he's calling himself this month. Hey, they have the money. Can you imagine, though, the NBA Board of Governors saying yes to them? They won't say yes to them. I'll tell you why. Because it's too much. It's too much like the community that they don't want at some of these games.
Eric,
and let me finish. You remember Bino and Lee, those two gentlemen that wanted to buy not only the Denver Nuggets but also the Chicago White Sox? What did the Board of Governors say in the NBA to them? They didn't have the credit line. They didn't have the money. So it's going to be interesting to see, just to say enough, what the NBA's next step is going to be inclusive in that exclusive club.
And that's what I'm saying. That's the issue. I don't care what you do to Donald Sterling right now. You force him to sell the team, he's still going to make, you know, $700 million off his original investment. Right. Stay away from Donald Sterling. You know, everyone's dumping everything on him. Fine, go ahead. Now, I want to see what these other 29 owners are going to do, because the perception now is that they've always argued that the NBA is the most inclusive league as far as giving opportunities to minority candidates, except in ownership. Right. So now, if you're going to get Oprah, David Geffen, I mean, can you consider that management group? You have someone in Geffen who's openly gay. You have in Oprah someone who's black and also a woman. That's the mother lode for the NBA, wouldn't you think? And if you're trying to make an argument of diversity, and no one's ever going to question how much of a line of credit Geffen and Oprah are going to be able to get.
Right.
So that excuse is gone for these NBA owners. Now you have to prove to the public, to your fans, and everyone else that, you know what, Donald Sterling was an isolationist with his views. But
and we're not like, he doesn't reflect us as an organization.
Until they do that, there's going to be serious, legitimate concerns that what Donald Sterling said in private to his girlfriend, he probably said in private to
all
other owners at those meetings.
Right.
Were you outraged them?
What about the sponsors? Because we saw sponsors starting to pull away. I mean, it's money talks. So do you think that the NBA feels like they have been so damaged as a brand that this is the moment that they've really got to prove something differently?
It's trickling. It's trickling that way. It will take a lot more than CarMax, some of these other sponsors that pulled out of the Clippers situation when it hit, to make a big impact. If you have I don't know who, say like Ford is to the National Football League. I don't know what the big sponsor is for the NBA, but if something like that happened, then you'd have a magnitude, like a earth-shattering earthquake. But until then, I don't think it would matter because, like you said, Donald Sterling bought this team for $15 million. Now it's worth in upwards of $750 million. Okay, so
Do you think he'll be throwing that money around, the profits from that, to sort of greenwash his reputation, or is he going to take his?
I think he'll go away.
He's been giving money to organizations all along, the NAACP.
He's buying approval.
Right. And do you think he feels like he needs to do that now?
And I don't think so. And I want to say this about the NAACP. Yeah, you know, everyone should be frowning on the NAACP LA chapter, but I'm not going to frown on the NAACP Detroit chapter, any other chapter for that matter, because had people like myself donated more, they wouldn't have to go to Donald Sterling and take this blood money. And that's the real of it. Donald Sterling gives you a check and you honor him. And that's what a lot of organizations do. And I'm tired of black folks taking the liberty to dog the NAACP. Yeah, they were wrong. Don't get it twisted. I think they're very wrong in what they've done. But at the same time, what have we done to contribute to that? I've seen different columns that have bothered me with that, and I just need to make that clear. We should not just point the finger at the NAACP LA chapter. Yes, they're wrong, but as a community at large, have we given that $40 check?
Okay, so Drew, I want to fast forward to your next column when all this kerfuffle has gone down.
Settled down.
Yeah, settled down. What is a big whoop? What's going to really be impressive to you in an outcome?
I'll tell you right now, if the LA Clippers announce a new ownership group with Oprah Winfrey and David Geffen as the primary owners of this, then that would be a big day in sports, and a big day in culture, because again, Donald Sterling may not realize it, but he may have awakened a sleeping giant, and that there is significant money and influence within minority businesses who finally now say, you know what? This guy doesn't want me at the table. Screw him. I got the money. I'm going to do whatever I can to get that spot. And the NBA has to pay attention to that. And it'll be smart from PR standpoint to, if you want to be inclusive, bring it in.
Great. Eric, I'll have to give you the last word on this. What do you think how is this going to all settle out?
I think it's going to settle out in the National Basketball Association making a major attempt to get some minority ownership. But the biggest thing for me is locally. What's going to happen with Tom Gores, the distant owner who's a California businessman, not a Michigan businessman? What is he going to do with his own organization? I want to see it locally, and I want to see players that stand up for principle more than that bottom line. I'm sorry. I just want to see one or two guys say, man, I'm not playing tonight because of this. You don't think Chris Paul would get another job in the National Basketball Association had he not turned over that, just taking it off and said, I'm not playing tonight? That's what I want to see.
It's interesting. I think this conversation is going to go on a long time. And I look forward to the day when athletes really are role models, and they see that as their job.
Well, they are. They don't want to admit it, but they are.
They really are. Thank you. We'll have to have you guys back when all this settles down. Just ahead on American Black Journal, a special honor for the founder of an organization dedicated to diversity in the arts. That's next, right after a look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1903, Booker T. Washington addressed an enthusiastic audience of blacks and whites at the Light Guard Armory. In 1994, Saul Green, a Mackenzie High School and University of Michigan graduate, was confirmed as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District. And in 1841, Bethel AME Church was organized. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
The Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs has a new member, and he's a familiar face here at Detroit Public Television. Aaron Dworkin, founder and president of the Sphinx Organization, was named to the council by Governor Snyder. Aaron's organization focuses on youth development and diversity in classical music. The group's annual competition features Black and Latino string players, and the finals concert is broadcast and webcast on this station. I'm pleased to welcome Aaron Dworkin to American Black Journal. Aaron, you've been at this 17 years. It's been an amazing journey. Tell me something about, fast forwarding now, 17 years later, what kind of impact is the Sphinx Organization actually making on not only the performers, but also the whole culture around classical music and audience building?
Well, it's really been a critical issue, the lack of inclusion in not just classical music, but the arts as a whole. There is, I think, a host of different solutions that we've tried to employ to be able to help make a difference. Certainly providing access for young people is a key part of it, but also building the diversity among the artist pool themselves. And so with our national competition, we're really looking at how we have increased the numbers of young students of color to the top music schools. Our alums have gone on to every single top 10 major music school in the country. We've had a host of our laureates and alums that now sit with major orchestras.
I do want to talk about one in particular because it feels like 100 years ago. I had the pleasure of interviewing Melissa White. And at the time, she was about to go to, it was one of the first Sphinx competitions, I believe.
Absolutely.
And she hadn't even performed yet, and she was she's a violinist, and just talking about her journey there and the excitement of being able to perform and to be in a room with all of these other Black and Latino musicians doing the same thing that she's doing. Let's fast forward. Tell me about her career.
Well, Melissa started with us when she was 13 years old.
Wow.
And since then, she has gone on. She's had a tremendous career. She ended up being able to go to the Curtis Institute of Music, one of the most prestigious music institutions. And then she was a founding member of the Harlem Quartet, which now tours, does residencies around the country. They just got done doing a tour in Africa, and so are one of the leading quartets in our nation.
And she's been on Grammy award-winning
Performances, absolutely.
Exactly.
And they've performed on the Today Show. So both in terms of media and in terms of the performances that she does as an individual, as well as with the quartet.
Now she's a major talent, period.
Yeah.
What did Sphinx have to do with that trajectory for her?
Well, a host of different things. One of the things, too, that's interesting with the young people who now come into any number of our various programs is that they say that they've never known a world without Sphinx. And what they're referring to is that when I grew up, I was the only person of color in all of the musical circumstances that I found myself in. And they have a context, they have a community that they now are able to join, and a network and a peer group and mentors and role models that they can look to. And we've been able to play a part in a host of all of those activities. So we take someone like Melissa, initially the ability to compete with her peers from around the country who come together to not only perform, but perform music by composers of color. Less than 1% of the works performed by American orchestras are by any composer of color. So they highlight those works. And then, of
Well,
course,
they can't
we
find
provide
those
them-
composers. They don't exist.
Exactly, right, exactly. And then we provide them with the opportunities and the scholarship to be able to attend the top music institutions and then to be able to carry on their
So
professional
you
development.
provide them sort of a cohort, a peer group, a mentoring group, and then also a bit of a pipeline for career opportunities going out
Absolutely,
there.
and make no mistake about it, money and resources.
yeah, right.
They need help to be able to attend the top music schools. They're not able to get enough scholarship support. We all know what's happened in terms of music in our schools and the opportunity to be able to have private lessons. So all of those aspects of your musical development require resources.
I took piano lessons for 5 years. I have no ear for music. I was awful. I cried at the piano trying to take lessons, and I will tell you to this day, when I hear someone playing a piano, I so appreciate what I'm hearing, not just from that pleasure, but from the technical standpoint, because I could never do it. But having the lesson really opened my mind to the art and the science of the music.
It's critical, and this gets to beyond, obviously we have a key goal to build inclusion and diversity in the arts and in classical music. But separate from that, the value of a classical music education and music education overall for our young people is critical. It affects every other academic performance. Right. It affects graduation rates. It affects college matriculation. All of these aspects have been proven to significantly increase if there is the study of an instrument at a young age.
Listen, I don't want you to get away without talking about Sphinx Con.
Yes.
So, what's that
So
about?
one of the issues that we have in the arts is that inclusion and the lack of inclusion is a problem across the board. And there are very few best practices, there's very few examples, there's very few communication between institutions about what will actually work. And so we developed the annual convening to bring all of the leaders in the field together here in Detroit every February to talk about the issues of inclusion and diversity in the arts and to share those best practices, to share those ideas, and to challenge each other's ideas so that we can have a far greater impact than just Sphinx's direct programming ourselves.
So you're really looking at changing the whole way arts education and arts programming is delivered.
Absolutely.
You're looking for institutional systemic change here.
Absolutely. And to give you just the snapshot in classical music or in orchestras, when Sphinx was founded, about 2% of America's orchestras were Black and Latino combined. We've been able to have an effect to double those numbers, but what that means is now we're about 4%.
Yeah.
And what that means in terms of a reality is that in the 1960s, the New York Philharmonic hired Sanford Allen, the first African American ever in the history of the orchestra. Today, there are no African American members of the New York Philharmonic.
Wow.
There are no Latino members of the New York Philharmonic. The Chicago Symphony 10 years ago hired its first African American ever in the history of the orchestra. He remains the only African American
So we
member of that
still,
orchestra.
why is that happening? How come we're not moving faster?
Well, that's a big part of a lot of our work, and we think it's the combination of a host of things. One, we need to build the pool, and we need to provide more access at an early age for young people to study. We need to be able to provide a continuity so that they can develop through, attend college, and then have professional development so that they're prepared to be competitive for these positions. But also, we must change the psychology and the approach of our existing arts institutions to understand the importance and the priority of diversity. The last thing that we want to have happen is what's happening now in the sports world, where orchestras are highlighted by the media because of not what is a minimal underrepresentation of the communities in which they reside, but a stark absence of the representation of the communities in which they reside.
Is there a pervading attitude that there just aren't the quality kinds of musicians that they need to perform in their orchestras?
I don't believe that there is, kind of rampant racism going on in the leadership of orchestras. But as I mentioned actually in a presentation I gave, that there is a profound sound of silence that exists in that it is not considered to be a priority. There are those who, without kind of racial views, feel that there is just not the pool of talented musicians of color. But then our first question is, are you acting like any self-respecting business if they were based in Detroit and only 2% of their customer base and 2% of their employee base was African American? What would that business be living and breathing until they were better reflective of the community in which they reside, because it's in their business interest
Now,
to
but
do that?
orchestras have been under the gun of just trying to raise the money and literally stay alive. Are you suggesting that they need to take on a recruitment and development task as well?
What we're suggesting is that the answer to a lot of their challenges is inclusion and diversity. If they were to be more inclusive and more diverse, what would happen to their subscriber base? If they were more inclusive and diverse, what would happen to their donor base? If they were more inclusive, what would happen to the appeal of their product to the
To a larger
community
audience.
in which they reside?
Absolutely. You've got a program coming up, Sphinx Stars. Do you want to tell me about that too?
So we have so many of our young people here in Detroit where our national competition, just because of the logistics of having students apply from all over the country, it's hard for any one city to have a large contingent. And we wanted to make sure that many of our young people here in Detroit have that opportunity to compete with their peers, to excel, and ultimately be showcased and receive scholarship and prize money awards to be able to further their musical development. So we launched Sphinx Stars Detroit. And so this is only for our Detroit region. It's all instrument categories. And now we're heading into the finals, and those will be aired in just a couple months here on Detroit Public Television. And we're incredibly excited. The breadth and the depth
of talent that exists here in our community is incredible. And this not only speaks to all of us here in our region and shows us who we are as a music city, but it also demonstrates to the country that we're not the caricature that they often like to portray.
That's wonderful. I'm glad you said that because it does add to the breadth and highlights young people doing amazing things. So we got to make sure that the audience stays tuned here and come back to Detroit Public Television so they can see the Sphinx Stars Detroit. That is extraordinary.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Well, that's our program for today. You can get more information about our guest at AmericanBlackJournal.org. And as always, connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.